The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. The man Fortunato had done me 1,000 wrongs, and I had put up with them as best I could. But when he started to insult me, I vowed revenge. I did not utter a threat, though. You who know the nature of my soul so well must know that. In time, I would set things right, and I would do it and not suffer any punishment for it. I did not give Fortunato any reason to suspect me. I continued to smile in his face. He could not know that my smile was now at the thought of his death. In many ways, Fortunato was a man to be respected and feared. But he had a weak point. He took pride in his expert knowledge of wine. In this manner, he and I had something in common. I was an expert in the Italian wines myself. I bought them in casks or barrels whenever I could. Early one evening during the mad carnival season, I met my friend. He greeted me very warmly, for he had been drinking heavily. He had on a jester's costume. On his head was a cone-shaped cap with bells on it. "My dear Fortunato," I said, shaking his hand. "How very well you are looking today. I have received a cask of what passes for Amontillado, but I have my doubts." "How?" he said. "Amontillado? A cask? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival." "I have my doubts," I said. "And I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without talking to you first. You were not to be found, and I was afraid of losing a bargain. Amontillado!" "I have my doubts," I said. "I must satisfy them. You are busy." "I am on my way to see Lucrezi. If anyone can tell, it is he." "He will. Lucrezi cannot tell Amontillado from sherry." "And yet some fools will say that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let's go," he said. "Where?" "To your vaults," he answered. "My friend, no," I said. "I will not take advantage of your good nature. I think you have some place to go, Lucrezi." "I have no place to go. Come," he said. "No, my friend, I see you have a bad cold. The vaults are very damp." "Let us go anyway. The cold is nothing. Amontillado, you have been taken advantage of. And as for Lucrezi, he cannot tell sherry from Amontillado." With that, he took my arm and led me toward my home. My servants were not at home. They had left to attend the carnival. I'd told them I would not return until morning. I had given them orders not to leave the house. I knew these orders were good enough to make sure they would leave as soon as my back was turned. I took 2 torches and gave one to Fortunato. Then we walked through several rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. We went down a winding staircase and stood upon the damp ground of the catacombs. My friend's walk was unsteady. The bells upon his cap jingled as he walked. "The cask," he said. It is further on, I said. By the way, how long have you had that cough? He turned toward me. His eyes had the look of someone who was drunk. My poor friend could not answer for many minutes because of his cough. It's nothing, he said at last. Come, we will go back, I said. Your health is important. You are rich, admired, and loved. You are happy, as I once was. You are a man to be missed. We will go back. You will be ill. Besides, there is Lucrece. Enough, he said. The cough is nothing. It will not kill me. True, I replied, but you should be careful. A drink of this Medoc will protect us from the dampness. I took a bottle of wine from a long row. Drink, I said, handing him the wine. He raised it to his lips. I drink to the buried that lie around us, he said. And I to your long life, I answered. He took my arm again, and we walked on. These vaults are quite large, he said. The Montresors were a large and important family, I said. The wine sparkled in his eyes. My own body grew warm from the Medoc. We had passed through long walls of piled skeletons mixed in with large casks. I stopped again and grabbed Fortunato by his arm. Moisture drips among the bones, I said. It is very damp. Come, we will go back before it is too late. Your cough. It is nothing, he said. Let us go on. But first, another drink of the Medoc. I gave him another bottle. He emptied it at once. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upward with a gesture I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. You do not understand, he said. No, I replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood? Who? You are not of the Masons? Yes, yes, I said. You, a Mason? Impossible. A Mason, I replied. Show me a sign, he said. It is this, I said, and I produced a trowel from under my cloak. You joke, he cried, but let us proceed to the Amontillado. So we shall, I said. I put the tool beneath the cloak again. I offered him my arm, and he leaned on it heavily. We walked down until we arrived at a deep crypt. The air was foul. At the far end of the crypt was another smaller one. Its walls had been lined with human remains. On 3 sides of the crypt, bodies were piled all the way up to the vault above. The bones from the 4th side had been removed, leaving an open space. In this wall, cleared of bones, was an alcove about 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide, and 6 or 7 feet high. Behind it was a wall of solid stone. Ah, here we are, I said at last. Fortunato tried hard to see inside the alcove. but the torch's flame had dulled, and there was not enough light. Go on, I said. Inside is the Amontillado. As for Lucrezi, he is a fool, my friend said. He moved forward with an unsteady step. I followed right at his heels. When he hit the stone wall, he stood still, puzzled. On the wall surface were 2 iron rings. From one ring hung a short chain. From the other hung a padlock. I threw the chain around his waist and secured it. Within seconds, I had him chained to the wall. He was too shocked to fight me. I withdrew the key and stepped back. Pass your hand over the wall, I said. You cannot help feeling the mold. It is very damp. Once more, let me beg you to go back. No? Then I must leave you. But first I will do what little I can for you. The Amontillado, my friend cried. He had not yet recovered from his shock. Yes, the Amontillado, I replied. I walked over to the pile of bones on the ground. I threw them aside and uncovered some building stone and mortar. With these materials and my trowel, I began to wall up the entrance to the alcove. I had hardly laid the first row of stones when I discovered that Fortunato's drunkenness had worn off. I could hear a low, moaning cry from deep inside. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was a long silence. I laid several more rows of stone. Then I heard the furious shaking of the chains. I stopped working and sat upon the bones. When the clanging stopped, I resumed my work. When I had laid several more rows, I threw a weak light upon the figure inside. There was a series of loud, harsh screams from the throat of the chained man. This went on for some time. By midnight, my work was almost finished. When I had nearly put the last stone in place, I heard a low laugh from inside. It was followed by a sad voice. I had trouble recognizing it as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha, a very good joke indeed. We will have many a rich laugh about it over our wine." "The Amontillado," I said. "Ha ha, yes, the Amontillado. But isn't it getting late? They will be waiting for us, the Lady Fortunato and the rest. Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone." "For the love of God, Montresor," he pleaded. "Yes, for the love of God," I said. I listened for a reply. It did not come. I called aloud, "Fortunato." No answer. I called again, "Fortunato." Still no answer. I thrust a torch through the remaining opening and let it fall in. In return, there came only a jingling of bells. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the place that made it so. I hurried to finish my work. I forced the last stone into place and plastered it up. I moved the old stack of bones against the wall. For 50 years, no man has disturbed them. May he rest in peace. The end.